Hi, and welcome to another edition of An Apple a Day. I'm Denise O'Malley, the founder of You Define Wellness. And if you followed these interviews, you know what I'm doing is I'm introducing you to the health and wellness professionals that are part of the You Define Wellness Network. And I am delighted to bring to you a friend of mine, Dr. Anissa Cordova. Anissa, thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview with me today.
Of course, always happy to talk to you.
So I know what you do, but would you please share with everyone what your superpowers are?
Sure, no problem. I am a psychotherapist and I have a private practice. My first love is helping people facing chronic illness, either for themselves or one of their loved ones. I also kind of took a little bit of a right turn and ended up working in the field of organ donation for about almost 12 years, and that was in a hospital setting, a 24-hour call shift kind of life. So I love helping medical professionals because that's kind of a different world, and people who are first responders and that kind of thing. When I was doing that kind of work, I was also introduced to trauma. I saw it all the time. I felt it myself. I saw how it affected other people who were around it on a regular basis. So I ended up getting trained in EMDR, and which is got a lot of empirical evidence that supports it as an effective psychotherapy modality to treat PTSD and trauma. And then also, I have, long story short, I got connected with an organization called HeartMete, and I did some training with them. And so now I'm a licensed HeartMete provider, which is a program that helps us build our personal resilience and helps all of us get closer to our optimal functioning.
Okay, so we'll come back to those.
Lots of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. And I'll tell you what's jumping out at me first is that you work, the area of trauma and with the critical illnesses and the first responders. So that's kind of heavy.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, these aren't scripted, so I had no idea I was going to go there. But so I have to ask you a question.
Okay.
How do you, as a caregiver, what types of things do you do for you? So, because that would weigh heavy on me. So you've got to do self-protection somehow.
Sure, it's intense. And having a private practice, it's interesting because I initially thought I'm not in a hospital, no one's actively dying or had just died, so this should not be so stressful. But luckily, when I was in the midst of all of that, I kind of became like a self-care queen. Like I feel like that's my biggest hobby is taking care of myself, because I really saw in that setting that was so physically demanding with all the sleep deprivation and so emotionally demanding with all of the time pressure and the sudden unexpected loss and the tragedy and all of that, that I really learned the better I take care of myself, the better I'm able to support and serve other people. So for me, and I think it's a personal journey, so to speak. For me, the things that really help me stay feeling stable and happy is exercising,
Mm-hmm.
is being outdoors. And so luckily we live at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, which is some of the most beautiful pieces of land on earth, I think. And so, I need to regularly get up there and kind of hang out amongst the trees. I know that is really something that is supportive for me. But, that's still a drive, and I'm not able to do that every day. So I have my just straight up exercising. I have my cycling, whether it's the cruiser bike or my road bike. I have a daily meditation practice, and that is a huge, huge piece. In addition to my daily meditation practice, I also have a daily resilience building practice, which is slightly different, but it's kind of, it's a close cousin to meditation. There's a slightly different focus. They both, at their core, are mindfulness practices. And so
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness is something that I have found is super, super helpful for me and for most anyone, because most of the time that we get riled up about things, that we get upset about things, that, the stuff that kind of sticks with us, generally speaking, that's not something that's happening in the current moment. We're thinking about it. And so it's my perception of potential things happening in the future. It's my assessment of something that has happened in the past and generally what that indicates for the future. But for me, the meditation piece really helps me stay familiar with my internal workings. And the more familiar we are with our internal / emotional worlds, the less that stuff can kind of take us by surprise, the less just the discomfort of having uncomfortable emotions, that sometimes can sort of add to the problem. So if you become familiar with those things, and I try to practice doing that, then it becomes like, okay, yes, it's this thing again. And it isn't, so
Wow.
it doesn't knock me off my feet so much.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you're practicing what you preach, and I that's really a key. I know when I'm looking at my caregivers. So let's go back to EMDR, and then we'll cover HeartMath afterwards. But EMDR first. Can you explain what that is for the person who maybe has heard the initials but they don't know?
well, the funny thing is I'll tell you what the initials stand for, and that's still not going to get you any closer to understanding what they So it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So still kind of mysterious. What the heck does that mean? And in reality, that is really just one of the 8 stages of this modality of psychotherapy. There's a lot of history collecting and relationship building and that kind of thing. Um, and like I said, there are 8 stages, and it's really a way to help your brain reprocess traumatic information or a traumatic experience, which we can tell something is traumatic for us when you think back at, say, something like, say, I was in a car accident 10 years ago. If it is still traumatic or traumatizing to me, I can recall this experience I had 10 years ago. It'll feel like it was just yesterday. It might feel like it just happened, like my heart might start racing and my mind might start getting panicked. And so that is in comparison to, say, if it wasn't a traumatic experience and it was just like a small car accident, I didn't feel my life was in danger, I didn't feel trapped at all, then I can look back and be like, oh yeah, that was an unfortunate experience and it sucked, but it doesn't feel real time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a way that the information has been encoded into our memories that kind of keeps it live and traumatic in that way. So when we go through EMDR with a client, then we help them recall the experience in a specific way, kind of triggering certain parts of the brain, and then pairing that with some bilateral stimulation and some guidance. And what I mean by bilateral stimulation is uh, creating activity on the different hemispheres of the brain consecutively. So I can do that by either tapping your hands consecutively. We can give you earphones that do tones. I
Mm-hmm.
can have you looking straight ahead and move your eyes like this. And if a trained professional guides you through this process, then you can then that information is allowed to be integrated into adaptive memory networks, where the power of it does recede back in time. And
Mm.
does kind of fit more into that category of an unfortunate incident that is in the past. Does that make sense?
Okay, it does. Now let's talk about HeartMath. What is HeartMath, and how is it? I'm sure there's completely difference to what the EMDR is, but talk about
Yes,
how you integrate that in.
they are both physiologically oriented modalities.
Okay.
HeartMath is a program that was created on the foundation of about 25-ish years of empirical research into the physiology of emotion and the physiology of optimal function. And so in the resilience building program, which is nice because I can do that online like this, and that's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But with that program, I can teach people different techniques, breath and focus related techniques that they can practice outside of session. And they, with time, this becomes an easier physiological state to create through these techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Even after even more time, then it actually creates a new physiological baseline. So my baseline may be a more physiological, coherent, physiologically harmonious state in which my body is uh, working more efficiently and effectively. And also when I can create that physiological harmony or coherence, it's actually a replenishing state of energy. So it really, I for me, this is something that I used myself. Once I learned it, I'm like, all right, that's going into the self-care
Mm-hmm.
uh, quiver of arrows, so to speak. And I started practicing that, and that really, really helped me pull myself out of burnout when I was doing
Mm-hmm.
the organ donation job. And I was able to leave over a decade of that work, really intense work, with my gratitude, optimism, and happiness intact, which is actually one of my proudest
Good for
accomplishments.
you. Good for you. Okay. So the different modalities, that was a little bit of a heavy conversation for us, but it was really important to cover because I really wanted to know about it. So let's move into something uh, uh, you're giving back to the community and the program that you are a part of. And I would love you to share all of that with everyone.
Yes, yes. So I am involved in a nonprofit organization called Sidewalk Chalk. And this is an organization that was created by a psychotherapist in San Francisco. It is creating public listening events. Now, these listening events are not therapy. It's not sit down, let me give you advice or tell you answers to your problems. It's really an opportunity for people to be seen and be heard,
Mm,
because we are all becoming a little bit more isolated. We are all becoming, well, the opportunities for face to face or even real time
mhm,
interaction with other human
mhm.
beings is diminishing. And
Yes.
so, as a city leader for Denver, I keep track of a pool of trained listener volunteers, and I organize an event. Right now, I'm just doing once a month until the warmer weather comes along. But we set up somewhere in a public place, and we offer to people walking by some space to sit down and talk about whatever they want to talk about. And we are just actively listening. It's not come here and let me solve your problems. It's sit down and tell me something about yourself, and I am going to see you, I'm going to listen to you, and I hear you.
Okay, so let me get a handle on this. So you're going to go someplace like, I'm just going to pull this out, the 16th Street Mall downtown, or Wash Park, or wherever you may be, and you're going to have these chairs set up and these signs, and as people are walking by, you just say, I'd like to listen to you.
Hey, do you want to sit down and talk? We have trained listeners here for free listening. Yes, it's
Wow.
definitely an abnormal thing to do. It's not necessarily the most socially appropriate to be like, come talk to me, strangers. But I am willing to be a little bit of a weirdo in order to help people be seen and be heard.
Tell me what the
um,
response is.
so it's interesting. Everybody pretty much, once they figure out we're not selling anything,
Mhm,
then then they are a little bit more open to it. Almost everybody responds in a positive way, like, this is an amazing idea, this is so needed, I'm so happy you're here. We don't have as many people yet who actually sit down and talk, and whenever they do, they're always like, wow, this was really kind of neat. And so much of the time people sit down and they talk, and we just listen and actively listen to them, and they know, they might come up with an issue and they're talking about it, and then at the end they're like, I knew this is what I wanted, I just needed to talk it out, or I just wanted someone to tell it to. And so it's always been a really lovely and very positive response.
So you guys are just sitting there listening. Does it feel odd to the person that you're not engaging with them in terms of responding back to what they say?
We are engaging for sure, because
Okay.
part of active listening is clarifying. Did I
Oh,
get
okay.
it right? And what are, and not necessarily like, well, have you thought about this? But maybe asking, well, and how does that relate to this? Or you had said this before. It's really just, we are engaged.
Okay, so you're not just sitting there and not saying anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not like an art installation where we're just like talk to me. And then, it's a natural human interaction in a very contrived space. And those balance out to leave us with some good stuff.
So where are you doing these once a month?
Right now, the last couple events we've had have been at Sloan's Lake,
Okay.
although I am looking to possibly see if we can go just south a little bit to the Belmar Shopping Center. We think that there could be some more people there. It was a little tricky. We didn't do it so much in the winter months because of all the snow, but we did manage to pull off an event in February because, Denver, it's like you random sunny days all the time.
Right.
So we're thinking about doing that. And then when the warmer months come along, we may set up again. We've also been in the past over by like Confluence Park and that bridge that goes over just on the side between downtown, lower downtown and there. So trying to find places in Denver where there are lots of people.
There's so many things going on all the time. I would think that there would be an opportunity almost anywhere.
Right. And I post events on Eventbrite, and so people can see all the details there.
That's amazing. Okay. So I want to also talk about how people work with you. And I'm looking at your website real quick while I'm trying to talk. So you mentioned something about being able to do HeartMete through this type of a medium. So do you work with people both in person and through like Zoom?
I do. I'll use Zoom calls to do one-on-one calls with people who either don't live in the Denver area or, it cuts down on the commute. It can be convenient for somebody to just block out an hour of their day instead of, the 30 minutes it takes to get somewhere, and then the hour, and then the 20, 30 minutes it gets to get home.
Yes.
So with the Science Building program, it's a bit more educational. It's more akin to coaching. And so I feel very, very comfortable doing that through a Zoom call, doing something like that online. With psychotherapy, I feel like it's more important to establish the face-to-face rapport. So with some of my longer-term clients, if, like if storms come up or something comes up with work, I like to give them the opportunity to do this kind of video session. Or, childcare. If childcare falls through, then that can just throw a wrench in the whole day. So I like to do things like that, or I can do things over video with psychotherapy. But generally speaking, I prefer the psychotherapy clients to be in my office in front of me.
Right. Makes sense. So I want to make sure that we cover everything that you wanted to talk about today. I know you had a list of things. Have we covered everything that was on your list?
So let me double check. So yes, we did.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do for the viewer here is I want to share Anissa's website with you so that you can see. It's just Dr. Anissa Cordova, Cordov as in Victor A.com. And you can, as you can see on the middle of her website, it just says this big old contact me. And then I also would like to show you the You Define Wellness website. We are at you, as in YOU, definewellness.com. You can go over and take a look at our provider directory, see her listing there, as well as several hundred others that we have, and learn about our employee benefit program, and coming soon, our Healthy Living Savings Card for discounts on health and wellness products and services. So that went by really fast, didn't it? It's so much fun, but I thank you for being with me today and letting us get to know you and have the viewers hear about your passion, what you're doing, and particularly about the work that you're doing with listening to others out there. So thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this work that I really, really love to do. So this has been a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you to all of you who have watched this video. Stay tuned on our YouTube channel, we have more interviews like this, as well as the new series, Confessions of a Reformed Health Insurance Agent, which is my way of just giving you little inside snippets about the health insurance industry. So we look forward to seeing you on another episode.